Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am an economist working in DEFRAN fee modulation for PPR. This is the first time we're actually going public with this. So, I understand it's a big issue that will affect a lot of producers, and it's important we get this right. So, this presentation is by no means meant to be a kind of final policy decision or announcement. We're sort of presenting our ideas on modulation, and then in a few slides' time there'll be a survey that will go around, and hopefully, we will get feedback from you all, and kind of that we can take that away and then publish the final policy statement in June on this, because obviously it's potentially a big policy. So we first started with principles that we behind our approach. Obviously, to make BPR work most effectively, I think strongly incentivizing the use of recyclable materials is obviously really important, and it's also a legal requirement in the SI. We also have two more. So we want to reduce material switching risk to less recyclable materials. So obviously, as a consequence of our, base fees or any other aspects of the policy, we don't want people switching to less recyclable materials. And obviously that kind of defeats the point of the policy. And the third and final principle we had was to kind of align with and recognize the impacts of other policies. So obviously we have substantial reforms to recycling going on in all four nations of the UK. We also have the deposit return scheme and the impact that could have. And also we have ETS fees on energy from waste coming into 2028, I think, which could impact base fees in a few years' time. So essentially, we want to kind of look forward in this and kind of give some certainty for producers so that they're incentivized to make the right choices, I suppose. So then we have developed a methodology for applying the RAM, which is the recyclability assessment methodology, to the fees producers pay. So essentially, we think that because this is new, we think kind of bringing it in and have an escalating factor that increases over time in the next 3 years and giving kind of certainty about that factor makes the most sense. So we've came up with for invoices charged next year in 2026. Red fees will be charged 1.2 times the base fee. And I assume that you're all familiar with base fees. And then this would gradually increase over the next 3 years. And then beyond 2028, we'll publish a range and then kind of consult later on about what this factor could actually be. But the idea is that this is cost neutral. It's not meant to kind of punish or producers or charge more for packaging. We want to basically encourage switching to recyclable material. So all of the premium raised on those higher fees on red materials, on the least recyclable materials on the market, will be basically used to fund a percentage discount on all green materials that would be equal across materials relative to that material's base fee. So essentially, we think this is the kind of fairest and most simple way that we've developed that encourages recyclable materials while also maintaining the kind of circular component where fees are based on local authority costs still, but you're still incentivizing recyclable materials. So I hope that's clear. Obviously, it's not simple to explain, but happy to answer any questions on this. So, here's an example. We have the December 2024 illustrated base fee we published, which is £485 per tonne. Flexible plastic, assuming there's no take-back route, is currently classified as red in the RAM. Obviously, that might change given simpler recycling's progress and other recycling reforms, but at the current time, it's red if you have no take-back route. So what this would mean in next year, the fee per tonne would be the base fee. Obviously, the base fee is subject to change, times 1.2, so it would be £582 per tonne. Whereas, if you have a simple kind of PET container that has no contaminants, no kind of disruptive sleeve or anything, this will be classified as green. And basically we take the premium charged from all the red materials and use that to create a discounted fee on all green materials. that will be the same discount. So here it's about 7.5%. That comes from kind of very internal DEFRA modeling about the potential kind of volumes of packaging in each RAM category across materials. And, do not take that as certain by any means. It's kind of our best guess at the current time. And, we obviously don't have any data on the RAM submission, so that's very tentative at the moment. But the key thing is to understand that this green discount is equal across materials. So, even if there is more red plastic on the market, you still get the same green discount, whether you're in, plastic or paper or glass or any material. So we'll go to the next slide. Then, we have another question once we've developed the methodology to how much do we actually increase the red fees relative to other fees. So here we have, a model that we've developed kind of modeling the impact of a 1.6 times factor that we currently have at 2027. And, you can see the kind of green discount that we've modeled and what this would actually mean for the fees given amber stays at base fee and we have the current illustrated base fees that are also subject to change. So yeah, this discount on green fees depends on the volume of red materials on the market and the factor basically. So to do this, to kind of determine where we should land on the factor, we looked at international comparisons of other EPR schemes across Europe. You can see that 1.2 times for plastic at least is relatively low degree of modulation. Whereas, at 2 times, it's kind of more in line with a lot of the other schemes across Europe, like Spain or Luxembourg, obviously less than Belgium's, which has kind of the most advanced system. But, importantly, that I think, this is an advantage of our scheme. We have equal bonuses and maluses, which is what they call it in other schemes, across material categories, meaning that it gives other materials the opportunity to lower their PEPR obligation, as well as plastic by using more recyclable packaging. So it's not just some schemes in Europe only modulate on plastic. We're going to modulate on every packaging material category. So again, this kind of repeats what I said, but we can aim to drive unrecyclable materials out of the market by increasing the factor over time, while kind of reducing the immediate financial shock of the reform. Particularly for people who aren't familiar or with the RAM, or might be having difficulty complying with it. And the expectation is that after 2028, the factor will continue to increase. But obviously, this is far from final, and we will heavily consult on this over the next 3 years, essentially. And it will depend on evidence, whether PEPR is actually driving the outcomes we want in the packaging market. And just to emphasize again, modulation is always cost neutral overall. It doesn't punish packaging producers overall. It just basically redistributes money from unrecyclable packaging to kind of recyclable packaging, which we want to encourage on the market. So this kind of concludes what I've already gone through. But we plan to publish the first 3 years of modulation factors in advance this year, potentially in June, when we publish the final policy statement, with a range of what factors are likely to be beyond that. We will then review the policy as required by the SI before the 3-year mark, hopefully significantly before, as required by the SI. Initial modulation will be based on recyclability only, which is determined by the RAM, with an escalating factor published in advance to give producers certainty. So this is for the first 3 years of the policy. To give producers certainty, it will only be determined by the RAM modulation. So in parallel, we will consider how modulation can be applied based on other characteristics of sustainability, over the next 3 years, and then obviously we'll consult and publish research and do a lot of work on that well before the 3-year mark. And we'll consider the impacts of how changes in base fees due to other policies, for example, local authority investments, recycling reforms, market dynamics, scheme driving efficiencies, etc., impacts base fees, modulation, and incentives overall. And again, these are just the next steps. So we have a survey that's going out now, and then we'll collect responses by the end of this month. And then in May, we'll revise proposals based on feedback and work on the final policy statement before a formal publication of the fee modulation policy statement in June. And again, this is the survey. So we want to hear your views on our fee modulation approach. So we have a very quick survey that hopefully gives you the opportunity to give feedback on this policy, and hopefully maybe gives you some more time to understand it, because so you don't need to fill it out before April 25th. Go back, maybe understand, rewatch this presentation to fully understand the policy, and then write a formal response, and then we'll be looking at those over the next few weeks. Thanks very much.